Hey everyone, and welcome to my Renata guide. I've been very excited to make this video as Renata is just a lot of fun, but she's also one of the best enchanters and just overall one of the best supports in the game right now. And she's also one of my highest win rate champs. So this is going to be a long vid, it's going to be comprehensive. I'm going to put timestamps below as usual. Feel free to use those just to navigate around the video if you don't want to watch it in one go, just to see which parts you want to really learn about. So without further ado, let's jump into this video. I first want to talk about Renata's identity, and she is just the best enchanter in the game right now. But she is also the most proactive enchanter. Typically, enchanters want to disengage, they want to play slow, and they sometimes have a hard time dealing with all-ins in the bot lane. But for Renata, she fits really well into this high-paced meta, and she can facilitate all-ins from her teammates, she can disengage all-ins from the enemy team, and she can function with almost any ADC, so she's really versatile. And she also wins lanes. So she's kind of similar to Karma in a way that she can win lanes really hard in most matchups, but she also handles all-ins 10 times better than Karma can. So she wins lanes and she can't get all-ins, and she's just really oppressive, and then also has the ultimate ability, which can be game-changing the later that the game goes on. So yeah, her kit seems purely disengage, but her passive and her E can really carry trades too, just versus range champions as well. So if you are a high elo and you are serious about your time, I do heavily recommend adding this champion to your pool. I'm going to talk about her place in drafts now, and this section is going to be very quick. She is blind pickable. You do not need to really worry about almost any counter. I don't say this lightly. But I will say what she does struggle the most verse are mages, which are quite rare, very rare. Like Vel'Koz, like Veigar, like Anivia, Xerath, etc. Those champs, not only are they rare, but they would kind of make an issue for their team's damage portfolio if they're heavily indexed into magic damage. So in terms of just the most common traditional supports, she really doesn't struggle versus anyone. I would say Karma is the most annoying for the laning phase at least, but you can definitely still hold your ground and then outscale her as the game goes on. She's also good with all ADCs, which is exceptionally rare, especially for enchanters, who are more typically about kiting back. But she can pair with these Dravens, Samiras, Kaisers, Tristanas, these all-in ADCs that can make a lot of use out of her W, and also her Q can set up the plays for them as well. Okay, so for Renata's runes, she wants to run Guardian in almost every situation. So it's going to look like Guardian, and then Shield Bash, Bone Plating, and then the only real decision that you should be making is between Revitalize and Unflinching. Unflinching, obviously, if they have a lot of CC, and you can get value out of Tenacity. Otherwise, Revitalize is going to be your next best option. I do want to briefly mention that the Font of Life over the Shield Bash does give a better scaling opportunity, but the Shield Bash giving you that tankiness and giving you some more trading power with auto after your E, very valuable. Another alternative that you can consider is Airy versus low volatility lanes, where you don't really need the Guardian, maybe versus high scaling Enchanter lanes, where you can win harder than if you had Resolve. But you do have long cooldowns, so you're not the best user of Airy as the game goes on. So that's the only other alternative that you can consider. I don't think you should ever consider Glacial or Aftershock. It just doesn't really fit her identity. And Renata, like many range supports in the game right now, suffer from secondary rune itis, where you don't really feel like you can get great value from any two secondary runes. So the options that I think you should realistically choose from are Biscuits and Cosmic, although I think this is starting to get more and more outdated, and there are other options that are being experimented with. My personal favorite secondary runes for her are Mana Flow and Transcendence, where you get just a lot of value out of those, out of both of them. Biscuits is quite a controversial rune, and I don't think it gives the best value in a lot of cases. You could potentially make an argument for like Zombie Ingenious Hunter or Zombie Relentless Hunter, but I really have found that Mana Flow and Transcendence fits really nicely in terms of just scaling up into the mid to late, where you can have more uptime with your abilities. In terms of the rune shards, I think the most common thing that you should go is attack speed, and then the adaptive force, and then armor. You can swap out the attack speed in lanes where you feel like you're not going to be able to get many auto attacks off. Maybe you verse like a high ranged lane. Maybe there's like an Ezreal Karma and you'd rather go Adaptive Force and then Armor and Magic Resist, or double Adaptive Force and Armor. But for the most part, having that attack speed shard is quite nice to use your passive in lanes where you expect to be able to pressure and trade and get prio. For Renata's items, the vast majority of the time you want to go Spell Thieves into Lucidity, Boots into Shiralia's Reverie. The latest patch buffed her passive AP ratios a little bit, so this is why more and more people are going Shiralia's. There was a bit of experimentation or personal preference between Locket and more defensive and Shiralia's, but I think Shiralia's just fits her identity better as a whole, having more uptime, not necessarily needing to frontline. Alongside the new AP ratios, this is what you want to go 9 times out of 10, maybe even 99 times out of 100. I will say that you can sparingly consider Locket still if the whole enemy team is indexed into heavy burst, and all you have to do is just kind of stay alive and desperately keep your teammates alive. However, she does have tools for that, like her W and her E, and Shiralia's can be a good defensive option. So, second item, it's going to be situational. As with all support builds, it should mostly be Chemtech Putrefier, as there is still a lot of healing in the game with Conqueror, with Core Drinker, with things like that. So after the Putrefier, then it's going to be more situational items. Or if they don't have healing, then it's just going to go into the other situational items. I would say Mikhail's is going to be a common one if they have some CC. And then Ardent and Staff of Flowing Water can definitely be considered. Ardent if you have a lot of, if you have 2 to 3 members who can use the on-hit well. And Staff of Flowing Water if you have 2 to 3 members that can use the AP well. If none of these items seem good, or you have built one already and you want to look for another one, and none of those look good, then Zhonya's is a good option. I think Redemption is a bit of an overrated and overused item at the moment. Whenever someone doesn't know what they want to build, they just kind of default to Redemption. It doesn't really achieve much. So I would generally caution against going Redemption. So yeah, the path should be Spell Thieves, Lucidity, Shiralia's, and then Putrefier, and then like a Mikhail's or an Ardent, something like that, and then you're good to go. There will be lanes where you want to consider Relic Shield instead of Spell Thieves, particularly versus a heavy range lane where you're not going to get into range to proc your Spell Thieves, or a heavy all-in lane where you really want that HP pool to survive. And having the Relic Shield can also help in terms of getting that level 2 and not giving the level 2 spike in the all-in to the enemy lane. I don't recommend using any kind of defensive boots or Swifties. I think Lucidity is just far too good on Renata and Enchanters. And the fact that she has really long cooldowns just amplify how good ability haste is on her, because they reduce more seconds from her abilities. I'm going to quickly talk about her ability order. She functions like other enchanters. You want 3 points in your laning ability, which is going to be her E, and then you want to max her scaling ability, which is going to be her W. So you'll go E level 1, Q level 2, W level 3, 3 points E, max W. And it's the same for a lot of enchanters. The same with Karma, 3 points Q, max E. Same for Lulu, 3 points E, max W. That's just how you should generally index your abilities as enchanters. I want to talk about her lane synergies now. And Renata really is a jack of all trades, master of none, although pretty close to mastering some of them. She can function with all ADCs, and I don't say this frivolously. She can match the prio and poke of some laners, maybe like Caitlyn, Ezreal, those are the first that come to mind. She can match them with her prio and her poke. She can set up all-in lanes with her Q and W. So we talked about briefly the Draven, Samiras, Kai'Sas, Tristanas, they want to jump in. She can set that up. She can also allow scaling and front to back just with being an enchanter and her disengaged kit. Maybe you have like a Vayne or a Zeri who just want to chill more so in the laning phase and scale up a bit, and she can fully accommodate for that as well. And then just other maybe pick or prio ADCs like the Ashe, Varus, Jins. She can match whatever any ADC wants to do. So she is really blindable and can her kit allows her to synergize with a lot of different champions. I will give a special shout out to Caitlyn though, where you can Q2 them onto your Caitlyn's traps. And in terms of champs that she counters, pretty much every single melee support in the game, and I really do mean that. She just has an excellent kit at dealing with melee champions. Her passive, if she finds the autos and she has that range advantage, that can be very annoying for melee supports. Her Q great at disengaging, her W great at any kind of all-in fight that the enemy wants to look for. Her E has the slow and the shield. So any type of melee champion, she is going to have a really good time against. For those of you who do watch some professional leagues, what you will notice is that Renata is picked into engagers like Nautilus and Leona. These are the two most popular and potentially the strongest engagers at the moment. And her kit is just fantastic at disengaging and dissuading these all-in attempts while she does outscale and also get prio in the lane. In terms of Renata's combos, she is not a very combo-centric champion. She can't Q flash, she can't E flash. I'm going to mention just a few, and the first one is Q1 and then E somewhere and then Q2, push them into your E. It can work, obviously, if you pull them towards yourself in the E, or if you push them away, the E is still going to hit at the end. You can R flash. So I'll just show you what it looks like here first. And this is typically a spell that you don't want to use like an engaged tool like this, flashing forward or something. It's going to give you much better value, as you'll see later on in the video, as a disengaged tool. But you can R flash, and sometimes where that will come in handy. Maybe you can picture a fight here where the enemy team is trying to disengage. Maybe we have some teammates around here or something, and then you want to try and R flash. And what you can do is just start it over here and then flash onto them and surprise them. So there will be some fringe instances where you can R flash. That's why I'm including it here. I only want to include things that you'll actually use in the game. And the last one I'm going to talk about is the Q1 R Q2. So this is going to look like Q1 R and then pull them in, and then they're going to be rooted for the whole duration and then hit by your ult. So if you did like Q1, Q2, and then you try to ult, then they'd have some time at the end to flash away or whatever. So yeah, this is really not a combo-centric champion, so I wouldn't worry too much about this section of the video. I'm going to talk about Renata's laning phase now. Her early lane plays like any enchanter. You want to auto-attack the first wave, you want to look to make the lane a war of attrition and find that HP advantage. I've talked about this extensively in Support Fundamentals Laning and Support Fundamentals Comps and Identity, which I'm going to put down in the description below. But her auto attack trades, they're unusually good for enchanters with her shield bash and with her passive. Typically enchanters, they don't want to look for any auto attack trades by themselves, but with Renata you can definitely weave in a lot more auto attacks and come out not much the worse for wear. Her level 2 spike, it's also unusually strong for an enchanter with her flash Q, which can really set up an all-in play alongside your passive constantly providing DPS. So what you want to do is that you want to sack bushes versus melee matchups if necessary and just generate an HP advantage by auto-attacking minions, auto-attacking champions, and just generating that HP advantage so you don't have to just straight up brawl someone to the death. You also want to look for trades when your E is up, and you win most trades with E into auto attack. And what you can do is you can auto attack and then press E, and if you do this fast enough, then your shield bash auto attack will go through if your E is pressed before your auto attack projectile hits the opponent, if that makes sense. So then you don't have to try an E and then get into range for your auto attack. You can just get into range of your auto attack and then press E immediately afterwards. Versus engagers, you want to be less frivolous with spell usage. You'd rather use a lot more auto attacks and save the big spells, namely Q and W, for those disengaged situations. Also, a little bit of your E. You don't want to be spamming out your E, only when the prio is already decided. You're just poking them under tower, or you're just waiting for your wave to crash under yours. Obviously, you can throw out a Q if you're not in danger of getting all in. But versus enchanters, you can posture to control bushes, and you can look to initiate all-ins, and you can really find a lot of kills, as we'll see later on, aggressively looking for Qs. But just in general in the laning phase, you are really strong, and I want you to exude confidence and really auto-attack a lot. And whenever you have your E up, aggressively find an auto attack into an E. You're going to win almost every trade if this is how you're going to play the lane. All right, let's review Renata's early games. And the first one that I want to have a look at, we are Lucian Renata versus Kaiser Nort. And I just do want to point out that I felt that stopwatch was very valuable in this game versus Karthus, versus Kaiser and Nautilus all in lane. So a few things that I want you to just keep an eye on. I'm going to look to generate and maintain an HP advantage. And I'm going to keep my foot on the gas. And I'm going to look to avoid bush contest. So here I know that there is a possibility that we might be getting cheesed in the bush, and I'm not going to face check. I'm just going to instantly order minions. I don't care if he's here. And it turns out that he is here. And this is probably a pretty common strategy for like a Nautilus or engaged champ to get an advantage in the early lane, just to sit cheese and hope that someone face checks you. But all you have to do is you just walk with the wave and you just get to generating an HP advantage. I couldn't care less where Nautilus is, honestly. I'm just doing my thing. So yeah, I'm not contesting bushes. I'm generating HP advantage on the minions here. And here I missed a window to look for an auto into an E. I just went for an E, but I'm going to make sure I'm hitting level 2 anyway. Okay, so we get Prior, we're going to get level 2 first. That's already a huge win versus an Engager lane, which is one of their strongest spikes, using the Relic Shield and getting level 2. Go for a Q, I miss, and I'm just looking to keep my foot on the gas. I'm just constantly ensuring that we have Prior and we have that HP advantage and that it's not an even playing field. So he finds a pretty good hook here, but I do find an auto into an E. And so the trade works out pretty well in the end. And this is what I mean by standing your ground in trades. When you do get all-ins, you can deal with it very well. So I had two options here. I can just E and auto here and then run away. Or I can posture aggressively as I did. I'm going to get Kaiser passive proc. I'm going to get her Q proc, but I'm going to be able to find a double Q stun there into a pretty good trade onto the ADC. So either routes would have been fine, and all the while we still maintain an HP advantage for the minion wave. And that's just going to be the theme of this laning phase. I'm never going to give them an inch back into the lane. And all the while, we are going to be generating a CS lead, naturally, because the waves are crashing under their tower and they're going to miss some. Especially with our constant pressure. Whenever they do look for last hits, they're going to take some poke. So same thing here. I'm a little bit scared of maybe a Karthus could gank around this timing, so I'm going to chuck my wards down. And this is the good thing about having wards instead of sweeper as an enchanter. You get to ward for your lane. And enchanters typically want to keep Prior and play for the 2v2 HP advantage, make it that war of attrition, and that leaves your lane open to getting ganked. And so you're not often contesting side bushes, so you don't need sweep, and the wards can help to ensure safety for your lane. We also find a brief window to do Scuttle. Renata's great at taking Scuttles with her Q to remove the shield and her passive to constantly shred it. And then it's back to the same thing. So here, there's a heavy trade and it's never going to go anywhere for them. And this is why Renata's great at disengaging. So Nautilus finds a hook. I can find an E onto all three members of the lane. And then I'm going to place pressure onto the Kaiser so she can't follow up as easily. And then I find a double stun. And he used Ignite for pretty much no avail. So their kill threat is very low now. And we still have that HP advantage. We still have a big CS advantage. We're going to get the favorable recall as well. I see Nautilus hanging around to go for a hook here, so obviously I'm going to cancel my base. I missed my AE, but there is a lot of all-in, as you can see here. This was never going to go anywhere for Nautilus. My kid is just too adept at dealing with situations like this. So I find the Q. If he flashes the Q, sure, he can potentially live unless we flash after him. But either way, I don't care what he did. I'm just maintaining an HP advantage. And I decide that since we killed the support, we can pressure forwards versus the ADC now and deny this wave. And then we eventually find a base. And so the first 5-6 minutes of the lane has gone really well. Kaiser Nord has not been able to ever get a foothold into the lane. And if Kai'Sa cannot snowball, then they're exceptionally useless. So not only do we neutralize them, we actually generate a lead. And then in the mid to late, I'm going to vastly outperform any kind of engage that they want to throw at us. Moving on. I try to be annoying and cancel some bases. And I don't want Lucian to hard shove, so I ping him. I want him to stack a crashed wave, and right now I'm just going to be roaming around a little bit. I can set up this for my support, and then on the following bot wave, I'm going to meet up with it and then look to crash. So actually, I'm helping out on Dragon a little bit as well. As I mentioned, my passive is very good for Dragon. And yeah, it turns out that we're actually going to try and slow it down another wave. So the bigger wave that you can crash, the better. This is all not Renata specific, so I'm not going to dwell too much on that. Okay, we're going to crash this giant wave here. And we have our jungle on our side of the map, and I'm confident in being able to hang around here. I know that the Nautilus is going to go for a cannon with his Relic Shield. You have to be very disciplined to recognize that you can't get a cannon. And so what I'm doing is I'm kind of backing off and giving him the feeling that he can afford to go for this, but then I know we can find a big trade here. I even drop the Ignite, and maybe he dies, maybe he doesn't. But either way, even if he doesn't die, he's on 1 health, he has to base, and then we can deny Kai'Sa with this following wave. So I land my slow with the E, and then I flash forward. She doesn't flash, she's dead. And so we get collapsed on by the enemy mid-jungle, and I actually do a really bad stopwatch here. I stopwatched as my ult went out, and then they both got, berserked. So I should have stopwatched the Karthus ult right now. But anyway, it's pretty evident that bot lane is a big win con for us this game. We're going to play just a little bit more. I run bot, I prevent the crash, and I trade with my auto and E there, as you can see. Trying to dissuade the crash here, posturing forwards aggressively. So we can't dissuade the crash. We do chunk them. I cancel the base, and now it's back to the war of attrition, the HP advantage, keeping your foot on the gas, constant pressure, constant uptime, and we've naturally just taken like 3 plates in a 2v2. We haven't had any jungle attention, any mid attention. Same thing. Uptime, pressure, poking under tower, naturally generating a big 2v2 lead. If Nautilus ever goes in, first of all, he can't find a good window to go all in because we're maintaining that HP advantage, and so they constantly have to deal with minions. Secondly is that the few instances that he has looked for or found a hook, I know that I can just stand my ground and trade with my whole kit. Okay, a little bit of heavy trading going on here, and this is where the point that I'm going to mention in the 1% later on in the video. This is where it stems from. If you are going to dive, you want to W the lowest health member. So I need a tank here and press W on myself, but instead I W my Lucian, and then he kind of one-shots the Nautilus and then dies, and then the W kind of doesn't do anything. So I'll talk about that more later though. And yeah, so this is the laning phase I wanted to show for this game. We navigated an all-in lane by the enemy team. We kept our foot down on the gas the whole time, didn't let them up for a second. Alright, so for this game we got Kai'Sa Renata versus Jinx Lulu, and this is the game where I experimented with Aerie versus an Enchanter lane. That's not going to be a focus, it's just something I wanted to point it out. Let's jump into it. So this is a scaling Enchanter lane that I wanted to show, where a lot of solo queue players might try to pick a more scaling, peeling oriented Enchanter into Renata, and we can see how you can deal with it. So let's jump into the lane. What you're going to notice here, as opposed to the Nautilus lane, is that I'm much more confident in standing in the bushes and controlling the bushes, posturing for them, because I have the all-in threat, as opposed to the Nautilus. And that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be standing, posturing around here and backing up my trades with E in auto. And it's just very hard to win a trade against Renata if she uses her E in auto. If you get the damage, if you get her shield, and you get your auto with your passive, it's just too many stats pumped into a trade. So I take this trade very confidently. I auto IE, I get another auto off, and she barely broke my shield. I've gotten all 3 of my Spell Thieves procs off, and my E does have a long cooldown, so for the moment I'm going to try to avoid trades until my E is back up. You can see me back off here, look to find autos, and now I really want to get level 2, so I'm going to be moving forwards to try and trade, try and damage the minions here and try to get her to auto me instead of the wave. So once again, I'm just trading with my auto and my E, and we hit level 2, but they also hit level 2 at roughly the same time, so I'm not going to be flashing forwards, but I am going to still be controlling the lane, maintaining that HP advantage when possible, although we are scared of the Volibear just around here. So in terms of the 2v2 lane, this would play out much different if Volibear wasn't 3 camps and contesting our blue. I would be looking to maintain an HP advantage, looking to trade, looking to find a Q potentially. And so right now we kind of have to let it push into us for a little bit until Volibear leaves. With that being said, you can see the power of your all-in trades or your heavy trades. So Lulu stepping to try and E me, and then she gets into range with my Q, and then I Q, I E, I auto, and that's just going to be a lot of damage. Once again, very hard to win trades, short trades like that when Renata can dump all of her stats into a short trade. So here I'm posturing to try and dissuade their bot lane from moving up around here. And I do get very low. So this was a little bit of an overstep by me. I should just ping my jungler back. He looks like in quite a compromising situation here. He's trying to run down here to their bot lane, and I'm trying to buy him some space, and then he dashes over and I hang around too long. And I actually pull her forwards, which is a mistake. So it happens. But at the end of the day, our wave state is good. Their ADC flashes forward. We forced the Lulu flash earlier, so I'm just trying to buy my time here. I know that I'm going to be able to get an effective re-engage off, and this is exactly what happens. So I was a little bit impatient at the start there, but then I do want to hang around. I know that Jinx flashed, I know that Lulu flashed. I'm not going to flash forward right now. I'm just being patient, trying to pick my moment, and then I find the moment, and I mean, kind of unfortunate we get both of the kills, but being patient with your Q is a big one. And then Triss jumps forwards. Then I realize we can kill her. I drop my ignite on her as well. She dies. So quite a chaotic fight around here. Let's just move forwards from this. I want to show you more of the 2v2, which is more less variables than all of the things that are going on in this game. Put my pink in the dot bush, move back around towards bot, try to help crash this wave here. And I'm trading with my auto and my E again. You can see how effective that is. And then when your E is down, auto attacking minions, crashing the wave, and now we have some options. And I want to potentially look for something from the bush, but Kai'Sa doesn't make it to the bush in time. All right, we're just playing the 2v2. I'm posturing forwards, looking to trade with auto and E. Try to deny the cannon with my Q, it doesn't really work out. Okay, so this, once again, this isn't really 2v2 specific. I'm trying to bait the Volibear forwards. I miss my Q, unfortunate. Let's speed this part up a little bit. Crash that wave. We have an HP advantage, and I want to, this is the situation that I do want to maintain this HP advantage. However, this Volibear is just constantly bot this whole game, so it's a little bit harder for me to play with that 2v2 freedom like I could in the other game. But I do notice a window here, and we can just appreciate the all-in potential of Renata as well. So Lulu's a bit low. We know that they don't have flashes from earlier, and I find a time to move forwards and look for an all-in. And so what I try to do here is I try to get the slow onto the Jinx as well as onto the Lulu. So I try to move into E range here. I think I just miss out here, but I slow her with the E, and then I'm always going to land the Q once she is slowed. We get an easy all-in. I still have my W. I don't even need to use my W. Really simple stuff there. So this is just setting up your Q with your E. It can go a long way. And bot wave crashes. It is the 8 to 14 minutes mark now. So I'm going to play less around bot and more around mid and top. And this is the case for this game because last game there was a lot of attention on bot, and my jungle and mid were not necessarily posturing towards this side. We just always had we stood to gain a lot from playing around bot. We got plates, we got a wave advantage, we were solo killing a lot. But in this game, while we still are in a great 2v2 spot, I feel there is more freedom to look to roam to Herald, because with this Jinx Lulu, it is very unlikely that they can ever dive my Kai'Sa, and I'm not pressured as much to maintain constant pressure onto the enemy bot lane. If we kept Kai'Sa Nord under tower, never snowballing, never having an opportunity to do anything that was very valuable, here I want to translate the leads to get a Herald, and they can't do anything about it. And that's exactly what we're going to look to do over here. I'm just confidently posturing around here, chasing their jungle off. I get my team Herald with my roam window, and then I shove mid, I run back bot, and so I've kind of helped out so many different roles. So I actually don't run back bot just yet. I'm hanging around mid to see if anything happens, and then I decide to run bot. Unfortunately, my Kai'Sa dies, and here I just run straight past and, you know, try to get some kills. So I'm versus the Jinx Lulu. I obviously want to try and find the Q onto the Jinx and then to push her onto the Lulu. And this is it was a bit of a coin flip, but what you are going to notice if you do use your Q aggressively as Renata is people aren't just going to run in a straight line and give it to you for free. So what I did here is I just ran at her and used it immediately and threw it for the juke. And so she jukes, I get the double stun, I get the double E, and then I am spreading my passive as much as I can, autoing as much as I can, and they both die. Moving on. Playing more around mids. In this window, we're going to run back mid from base, and then towards bot in the near future, potentially. And once again, this is just the all-in threat that you can have, and if they don't respect your engages, then you can really just one-shot them. And this is where Renata is jack of all trades, master of none. She can do everything. She can get prior and poke, as you have seen. She can all-in, as you have seen. She can disengage, as you will see. Here, I just find a flash Q. I know that the Jinx didn't have flash from the earlier engagement, and this is where if I instantly Q2'd, knowing that she had cleanse, it would be good. Keep your eyes peeled for the 1% later on in the video once again. But I flash forwards, and then I find a double stun. My ult's a little bit off here. I was a little bit too worried about the Jinx getting away. I wanted to cut off her entire path. There's no way that she could juke my ult if I positioned it appropriately here. But still, we get the all-in. And there you go. We won 2v2 really hard. We got Herald for our team, and we've pressured a lot around mid into the vision and helping mid get waves, and this is just how you're going to carry a game. Okay, so we've had an example of Renata versus an Engager. We've had an example of a Renata versus scaling Enchanter. Here, I wanted to show a little bit more of a volatile lane matchup, where we have Lucian Renata versus Kai'Sa Karma. So there's a lot of damage and a lot of potential prior and poke that both sides can do. So let's see how we deal with this one. Once again, I'm going to be playing for that HP advantage. So once again, I'm going to be generating that HP advantage and keeping my foot on the gas when possible. I'm confident to trade with Karma here when I do have my E. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking for autos. And now I'm going to be moving away from her until my E is potentially back up. And I'm still going to be constantly looking for that HP advantage. You see, I'm aggressively walking forwards here. I find an auto. I'm finding more autos. And then I have my E on the second wave, once again, backing out with an auto. And I've just pretty much secured us a level 2. And if they disrespect us getting level 2, I'm going to punish it. And this is exactly what I do. We get level 2 here. I find a Q, and then we just get a kill. So I expect her to flash here. If she does, obviously a great trade. If she doesn't, she's dead. I flash forwards and ask him to flash forwards as well, and she dies. hang around a little bit too long, but it's fine. We shove a wave, we base. And this is just being confident when you do have your E to trade, and constantly auto-attacking minion waves to get that level 2 first, maintaining that HP advantage. So we crash a wave, I find a base, I decide to hang around mid, because I know that Zoe is very low here, I want to cancel her base, and unfortunately these minions are not in the tower range, so I start tanking and I have to jump ship. But yeah, we still have a good wave state. Lucian shoved that wave, so I'm going to run straight to bot here and maintain a good wave state if possible. Okay. So it's hard to do too much in this wave state. We're just going to try and prevent the crash if possible, and force the enemy team to have to step forwards. And yeah, so here I find a window to look for an E and to look for a Q. And this is just the power of Renata being able to facilitate all-ins with her Q and her W, like I talked about. So I find a window to Q her here, and then I Q her forwards, and any type of all-in, we'll always get a win with my W. So I'm just deciding to commit forwards really hard, and there you go. It's really that simple. Okay, so we got the kill on the Kai'Sa, and then we just want to kind of deal with this wave and then back off. However, Karma decides that she can aggressively posture forwards. So there's, yeah, I mean, this is a little bit touch and go. Karma overstays. So I didn't really do too much there. I just punished. There's a bit of a river fight around here. So what I did from base is I didn't need to go straight bot because they're just slow pushing this wave. So I try to set up this mark for my Kindred. I know that my Galio is nearby. And so I'm playing quite aggressively here. I get a double stun, I get a double E, and I'm just trying to pressure for my team to come and collect the kills afterwards because I know that they can. And so they don't respect that. Get a couple of free kills here. Get the dragon. I'm going to stay on the dragon quite a lot, use my auto a lot for the speed, and then try to push them off. Nothing too complex over here. I find another short trade on here, force the ADC's flash. So I'm waiting until she decides if she's going to walk this way or this way. I just use my auto and E, and then once she commits to walking around this way, I find my E on her, we force her flash. And we're going to try to shove the wave and potentially find a base. There's a bit more action on the back end here. We can see what happens. Karma tries to dissuade my Lucian. They actually do flash my Q this time, so I'm fine with that trade. And we're eventually going to find our base, reset, and now it is the 8 to 14 minutes mark, so I am going to consider mid into Herald pressure. For the same reasons as the last game. I am versus an Enchanter, and my Lucian is not going to get dove. And so I'm perfectly happy fighting around Herald, because the Enchanter, they're also not going to have a huge engage strength around Herald. So unfortunately my my jungle and my top die, so that's kind of off the tables now. So instead I shove mid, I pressure mid a little bit. And now I'm controlling bot river and I'm sacking Herald. Just because of what recently happened. And so I decided they're trying to shove this wave, and I think that's a bit disrespectful. I do have a pink ward here, and so I'm not going to allow them to get a good wave state. So I'm going to try to posture forwards aggressively, and unfortunately I miss a Q. My Lucian kind of dashes backwards, but then we're able to... This is just like a pretty poorly played engage all in all. But we do clean up eventually. The enemy team overcommits. I still had another Q and my W. So we're going to move forwards. I'm coming out of base. I'm going to be pushing around mids. And then look to move bot on probably the following wave. Do some control around here as I do. Find a couple useful wards. back towards playing bot, and this is how my pressure could have impacted the game. We've been winning 2v2 really hard, and I used a roam window to potentially get my team the Herald, but they just randomly both died top, out of my control. It happens, but I still have pressured oftentimes around mid, post 8 minutes. I've controlled around this area. I've made sure that we have bot prior river control, good wave states, and this is pretty much all that you realistically can do. So I overstayed here a little bit and I had to ult to disengage. And we're just going to play out a little bit more of this game. And we're just really far ahead. And so we're just going to snowball this game pretty simply. We're going to move on to Renata's mid to late game explanation now. This is going to be a little bit shorter, as I've extensively talked about how to play through mid and support specific concepts, how the middle of the map scales. A little bit in my other videos, but also in my latest Nautilus Champion Guide, where the whole mid to late game is just playing through mid. That's what enchanters and engagers want to do to pressure the map. This is pretty much like basic League of Legends for almost all supports. You want to play through mid, you want to get mid prior, you want to get your mid ward, you want to control your objective with your team. The main variable I'm going to talk about for Renata specifically is how the team fights play out. You want to be a little bit careful with using your W, especially if it's kind of the mid game and you don't have that many points in it and it's still a really long cooldown. You don't want to be using it off cooldown just to, give a little bit of move speed or attack speed here or there. You really want to try and get that revive mechanic to be utilized, or at least the threat of it. So you want to save it for carries for the most part. You really need to just get into a lot of fights with Renata and assess how the fights are playing out. If you do need to save it for your carries, or if you're going to be winning the fight and you want to put it on your frontliner so that he can revive or chase down. But you do want to put a lot of attention into your W and a lot of attention into your R. Your ultimate is a really game-changing, fight-changing ability. And it is mostly used as a disengage tool for when enemy teams move forwards. So if they are in like a narrow area, when the fight is organized front to back and their front line is trying to move forwards onto you, your ult is just going to win the entire fight for your team. As soon as they use any abilities, engage tools forwards, then your ult is a great time to be used, because their backline can't back up this engage. So even if they all run forwards, then they're all going to get ulted and you win. If their backline kind of disengages to dodge your ult, their front line is isolated and they're also CC'd by your ult, and then that's a really good spot as well. So don't use this ability willy-nilly. I've been keeping my eye on pro play with Renata, and I see a lot of ults just thrown out randomly, trying to like engage with it, but really that's just not how it should be played. I see of it more as like a Zillion ult, where you're not going to be throwing out Zillion ult to engage or something, You can go for long periods of time without needing to use Zillion ult, just as you won't need to use Renata ult. The threat of it there being that fantastic disengage and team fight changing ability is just really good. So you really want to keep your cool here. There could be a chaotic fight and you want to throw out your ult. Maybe you're scared of someone's going to die, or you want to like stand your ground and fight. You really do need to have that discipline to disengage. And then once there is an organized front to back where your ults can just travel through their front line, and zone or hit their back line, then that's going to be the position that you want to use your ult. So this is something you're going to see in a few of my review points in mid to late fights, where I organize myself in a front to back and I disengage, and then I'm comfortable using my ult after that. Apart from that, it's just the classic enchanter identity in the mid to late game. You want to group up with your teammates, you want to play front to back, you want to use your spells on your teammates, and you don't need to feel pressured to frontline or to engage, to try and find these Q initiations. In team fights, you're more of a front to back, your Q is more of a disengage tool. Don't feel rushed, don't be out in the front, and then I'm sure you'll find a lot of success. Okay, we're going to review some mid to late games for Renata now. The first one that I do want to bring up is just the mid first one. So the two main things just for this mid to late review section of the video is I'm going to be looking for pressuring around mids and how to execute team fights. For this clip, just want to show a quick example of pressuring mid first. So what we're going to do, we're going to shove mid, get mid tower, get mid wave, and then we can look to pressure the rest of the map. And so we can use this window to, do some camps, or, pressure a river, find a reset or whatever. And if there is something to do on the side, then we can do it. And if not, then we'll come back mid, we'll pressure the next mid wave, and we'll rinse repeat. So here, we know that Jace is around here, and we're just going to move here and impact this fight. And they have to deal with the mid wave. If this wasn't happening, like I said, we would just shove the next mid wave. That's all I wanted to say for here. Okay, so in this mid game, we are postured around the mid lane, as we usually should. I'm going to be playing for mid prior. Then once we get mid prior, I can decide if we want to move that pressure towards top side or towards bot. And if something like this does happen where Israel ease forwards, then I can also look to use my kit to engage as well. So I find a flash Q into a double stun into an ult, and as you can see, we weren't necessarily ahead, so this was a really valuable fight for us to achieve overall. So apart from that little window of potential playmaking on midwave, we're going to have a look at a team fight. And this is going to be the main theme of the remainder of this section of the video, how to use your ult in team fights, how to really carry a team fight. So let's just play this out. There's a little bit of pressure around the top river and pixel bush here. We see Lysandra looking for a heavy engage. He flashes my Q, and then I'm cutting back. All the while I'm cutting back here, and then once everyone is kind of lined up for my ult, then my ult is really going to turn the fight. And I don't use my ult here, obviously. I don't look to just ult the Lysandra over here. I don't look to just ult her here. I'm really trying to kite back and find that position where they're all lined up into a choke. And so let's say here their teammates, here their whole team are. Let's say she moves back, he moves back. They all kite away from my ult. Lys dies, right? If they try to help her, they have to get hit by my ult, and it's just a really game-changing tool that you're going to see more and more. Okay, let's look at another team fight. So we do have a lot of the inhibs down in this game, but we're not really that far ahead at all in terms of money, and the Cloud Dragon isn't going to do much. So there's going to be a team fight that's going to unfold soon, and you're going to see how I position to ensure a front to back and to ensure that I can have an ult that, you know, changes the whole fight. So we're cutting back. We're really cutting back here. We're not going to take a straight up fight here when our backline can't really do damage. I really want the same position so that I can find an ult when people are going to be moving forwards in this direction. So I'm cutting back, and then Triss jumps forwards, and Jinx is also in the line of fire, and then we just get to ult. And that's just going to change the whole fight. So let's just watch this one more time again. So this is, I obviously am not organizing a front to back right now, and that is not what my champ wants. I really want to have a front to back. And so I'm cutting back so that their front is near my front, and eventually I'm going to find a spot where they're going to commit forwards, they're going to use abilities forwards, and then I can find that ult. It is also especially important to note that you really want to make sure the enemy ADC is included in the ult, especially mid to late game. And so Triss is jumping forwards to try and punish us here. I also hit the Jinx on the back end here, and yeah, let's look at another one. Same thing, I want to use my ult as a disengage tool when the enemy uses tools or posturing aggressively, so that I can hit them and turn a fight. There's a bit of posturing around here, and the fight is quite split. And so I don't want to just chuck an ult out right now. I want to move back, and then once they are moving forwards, right? You can see they're all looking to move forwards into this choke. Arya's ulting forwards, then I can hit a game-changing ult. And what I want you to have a look at is just first the result of this fight, and then what could have been the result of this fight. So let's go back. Kennen could not play this fight worse. He just kind of runs in, and then he Zhonya's for no reason. And then he takes a huge amount of damage here, and then he ults before flashing, and so a lot of his damage is wasted. If he played this somewhat at a decent level, they would get absolutely annihilated here. But still, Kennen and I managed to turn this little skirmish around against all odds. So we're posturing around the dragon in this game, and like we had potential opportunities to try and like find an all-in here, but again, we are not an all-in champ. We can't just find a hard engage around here in team fights. We just want to kite back, play front to back, and disengage with ult. So I'm going to concede this choke. I'm going to concede this choke It's not my identity. If they want to enter into the river and have a front to back, if they ever use an engage tool, if Warwick ults, if Kaiser ults in, if Darius charges forwards, then I'm going to look to ult. And the result here is just accelerated. Warwick ults in like an idiot, and this makes my decisions really easy. I'm just gonna use my spells. I'm just gonna ult. And then you can see if they back off, Warwick dies. If they try to follow up on his engage, they all get hit by my ult, and then it's just a really game-changing ability. So yeah, I'm not going to go over too many more examples of front to back and ulting as a disengage tool. I'm sure you guys get the picture by now. The last thing I do want to note, and it's from this game as well, is sometimes when the fight is going really well, and you don't need to save all of your abilities as disengage tools, you can use your W to chase, as it gives move speed and it ramps up. So we'll see what I mean here. We just got Baron and we're completely winning this fight. So I don't need I can be frivolous with my spells here. And I put my W onto Renata. I give her the speed with my E as well with the Chevaliers, and then she can just chase. And she got this kill. Maybe she gets this kill, maybe she doesn't. Just wanted to point that out. So while Renata may not be a combo-centric champion, there are many small things that you can improve on to stack up and make a big difference in your Renata gameplay. So that brings us to the 1%, which is strangely enough going to be some of the major part of the meat and bones of this video. There are so many things that you can do just that little bit better to get the most out of her kit. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about, you want to get the full duration out of your W in terms of the attack speed and move speed if possible, because it scales up over the duration. So if you try and use it as like a Zillion ult right before someone dies, they're going to get a very small amount of attack speed and move speed. If you assess a fight, like an all-in fight is on the horizon and about to happen, and you use it near the start, their attack speed and move speed is going to ramp up over the entire 5-second duration and make a big difference in terms of how many auto attacks they might get, which, as you can probably imagine, is very important in a 2v2 bot lane with your ADC. The next is for her passive. You want to get the most out of this by auto-attacking different targets. Let's say you're just looking to shove a wave. You want to constantly juggle your auto-attacks, kind of like an MF passive, because it can only be applied on one unit at a time. So you just juggle it and get that percentage health damage to shove faster. This can also apply in team fights, although it's less likely that you're just going to have the freedom to juggle auto-attacks on whoever you want, but it's something to keep in mind. This becomes the most important actually when you're dealing with super waves. Renata excels at dealing with super minions, and if you juggle auto attacks on a super minion, then a normal minion, then a super minion, you can almost, you really shred super minions. And especially if it's a double super minion wave, you just juggle auto attacking the super minions, then you can just really one-shot that wave by yourself almost. The next point is to use the circle hitbox of E. So there's a circle around Renata that instantly procs her E, and then it travels out in a projectile forwards. So what you will see uncomfortable Renatas do is stand far away from their ADC and then just try and throw their E at their ADC. But if they use that circle hitbox portion of their E, they can stand nearby their ADC to get that instant shield and to projectile forwards to try and hit the enemy to get all mechanics of her E utilized. Okay, let's talk a little bit about her Q now. You want to use Q instantly when there's no stun possibility. This is something that I've learned to minimize the chances of teammates failing to follow up with skill shots. So let's say you have like a Nidalee jungle who's ganking your lane. You land a Q, and then you're kind of holding it, and then you pull it back, and she spears and it misses. If you instantly Q1, Q2, and then she can react with her spear, or even better, you Q1 and then Q2 in the direction of the skill shot, like the Nidalee spear or the Jarvan EQ or anything like that, then you're going to avoid a lot of disastrous situations like that. You also want to spam Q2 versus cleanse. So a lot of ADCs will take cleanse versus Renata for her Q, for her ult, but if they don't perfectly cleanse the moment that you Q, then you can Q2, get the displacement. And that displacement is going to go a long way in terms of providing CC. So what that would mean is if they do have cleanse, if they do have Mikhails nearby or a QSS, you Q1, then you're spamming Q2 the whole time just to instantly drag them away. You also want to spam Q1 and Q2 away from an engaging champion. So this is why Renata is so good versus so many engaged champs. Let's take Leona, for example. Leona tries to E on to you, or she tries to E onto your ADC and you're next to your ADC. You're spamming Q1, Q2, and it's going to hit her and push her away. She's never going to get even close to getting her Q off. It's the same for Ellie combo. You spam Q1, Q2, he'll get pushed back. Same for Rel, same for Galio. So just make sure that you're spamming it. The last point about her Q is that her Q2 has a bit of a hitbox around the champ. You don't have to directly throw a champion into another champion. You can throw it adjacent to another champion and get the desired direction of displacement while still stunning. And I'm going to show you a small clip of that at the end of this, but just keep that in mind. Another point is that the Q1 roots, and then the Q2, if it hits another champion with it, it does a 0.5 second stun. Sometimes getting that 0.5 second stun is not as valuable as getting the displacement so that the enemy is further out of position. So let's say the enemy support is behind the enemy ADC, and you Q the enemy ADC, you push him backwards, and it gets a little bit of a stun, but he's been pushed to safety. It might be better to just pull him forwards. All right, tower dives. This is a bit of a tricky one. It's not very intuitive, but you kind of get the feeling that you want to tower dive because you have your W, but sometimes you're going to tower dive, you're going to kill the ADC, and then the tower kills whoever afterwards, and then it's like, oh, what should I have done? What you should do is W the lowest member. You want the person to die. So let's say you're half health, your ADC is full health, and you want to dive the enemy ADC. It might be worth to draw aggro yourself, W yourself, and then your ADC can just go balls to the wall and kill the enemy ADC. Otherwise, what would need to happen is that you W your ADC, but he waits until the tower kills him, and then he kills the enemy ADC and kind of gets away. But that's a bit tricky to coordinate in solo queue. So try to use a W on the lowest health member in a tower dive. You can also invade with Q. You can just get a multi-man stun. It's not only 2 people that get stunned, that's just normally how it is. You can stun many people, and it's great if an enemy team is stacking in a bush and you Q1, drag them, Q2 over the whole team, stun all of them. But even if you're getting a double stun, level 1, very valuable, and your passive to find orders, level 1, again, very valuable. When you have Shurelias, you want to be spamming E to constantly proc it, just so you can give yourself and your teammates that move speed burst. It's also worth noting that your W will give the move speed. So just if you're in Fountain and you press W on someone, the cooldown's not going to matter. You'll have it by the time you get back out onto the map. Something to note. We've also briefly talked about auto-attacking and then E for the shield bash proc. And this is another 1%er that you can do. So I just quickly want to show you what I was talking about with the Q2 stun having a bit of a hitbox. I'm going to flash forwards here soon. Flash forwards onto the Karma, and then I'm holding my Q, and then Ari is walking forwards. And then I can still get the Q displacement in the desired direction while she gets stunned by my Q. So there's a little bit of a hitbox there. And if you weren't aware of this mechanic, then maybe you would throw the Karma back onto the Ari and then miss out on so much of that displacement toward your team. Thanks everyone for watching. I try to make this video as in-depth and concise as possible, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed and that you learned something and that you're going to be playing more Renata in the future. She's a great champ. She's a bit clunky, and so you do need to put some games in on her, but you will be rewarded. And yeah, as usual, please feel free to join my School of Support Discord. The link is going to be down in the description below for individual coaching, for cool support resources, and to join a growing support community. Thanks again for watching, and bye.